Hello, and welcome to this edition of our self-help segment. This one's gotten really special, and the reason is because not only do I have my friend and colleague, Father Willie Todd, here, but I've got to have two priests on the desk with me. We welcome in Father Simon Peter as well. Father Simon Peter, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Father Todd, thanks for being here.
Good to be here.
I appreciate it. And so now that we've got a most holy desk, let's talk about what we're trying to do to kind of help assess and figure out what to do with the people. I know, Father Simon Peter, the bishop has been very clear about, we need to shepherd our people. We need to take care of the flock. Let's talk a little bit about how we're doing that.
Yeah. Good. What struck me right at the beginning was when Bishop was asked, I think it was 2 or 3 days after the storm had passed, he was asked, so Bishop, how's the diocese? His response was, the diocese is the people, and the people are hurting. And the main focus then is to respond to the pain of the people, the hurt of the people. And the immediate response was to meet those basic needs. So we had food and supply distributions at almost all our parishes at different levels. Some of them had every day, some had every other day, but really just to meet those basic needs. We have since been able to meet those needs and now move to look at the more medium-term and longer-term needs of the people. And so at this moment, we are focused on assessing the extent of their loss, their damage, and trying to figure out longer-term plans. So how do we address those needs in the medium term and in the longer term, recognizing that this is a major devastation. This is a major, it will not take a day, a week, a month. It will take us, for some, a couple of years to get back to the position that they were in before the storm,
Right.
Or better.
Right.
Better.
Because that's what we want.
Yeah,
well, one of the things I want to mention that was very interesting, and Father and I talked about this, the food and supplies that were being provided were often being provided at establishments that had tremendous damage. And so that's a remarkable effort made by and through the diocese to really take care of their people in positions and situations where there wasn't electricity, some places there wasn't anything that they could do other than what you brought. You brought your supplies, you brought your ability to cook. And so a lot of those things really took place in a very difficult situation.
Yes. And it was one of those events that brings alive what St. Paul says, in all things, God works for the good of those that love him. Because the way that people stepped up, I was struck especially by our brothers and sisters from Lafayette, Lake Charles, who just day one, they were here to help us to meet the people's needs.
Yeah, and they were.
I've been also, just really surprised that people from all over. In fact, just this week, we had a group, 2 priests drove all the way from Miami with a truckload of goods to bring to Montague as a center, and they unloaded it. They're going to Baton Rouge, and now they go back to Miami. I mean, just to bring that far away, that they heard about what's happening here, and their hearts reached out to us to help people in need.
Yeah, and so it's interesting, as you mentioned, Father Simon, about where we are and where we're moving to, that there's still a lot of people who are in need of those basic needs being met. There's still some people that don't want to go too far from their property, and they're living in tents or tent cities, and so we're still needing to really mission to those people.
Yes. So we are right now. So the last 2 weeks we did what we call assessments of people's needs. We established assessment centers one in Terrio, another one in Dulac, another in Chauvin, St. Joseph, and then in Karoff, Golden Meadow, and in Holy Savior.
Right.
Holy
Galliano.
Savior.
Right.
This week, we are here in Homer on Aycock Street at St. Lucie.
Right.
We are in Ponoche. We are at the food bank in Thibodaux, the Good Samaritan food bank in Thibodaux, and in Kramer. Really, what we want to do is to capture as much information as possible, as well as to direct people to available resources. So, for example, FEMA has a lot of resources available that people should take advantage of. So we're trying to help them direct to take advantage of those resources. Yeah.
And so the assessment process is really important, and it sounds like that's being done on an individual level from a lot of different areas. For the summit, we're really trying to figure out what the need is now. We kind of knew what the need was early on, or we kind of figured that food, water supplies were those things early on. And now the assessment process is helping people in different areas come and find out what's available to them and what they need right now. Is that right?
Yes, yes. So really the assessment is to serve two purposes. The first one is just to get to quantify the need. So as simple as right now, we don't know very clearly how many people lost everything.
Right.
Of those who lost everything, how many had insurance? How many did not have insurance? Because how you deal with each one of those is different.
Sure.
How many people lost their means of transportation?
Okay.
So for example, if one has lost their means of transportation, now that inhibits them from returning to work.
Right.
Okay, they might have their house in one piece, but their vehicle is lost. So the help they need is different from the one that lost everything.
Sure.
So what we are trying to do now is to get a sense of what is the need out there, and then based on that, develop a plan of helping them. Secondly, it will help us knowing the need out there. How do we prioritize? What would be our priorities in then responding to those needs? And so to that end, some of the needs are immediate. And so you respond to those immediately. So as we speak right now, we have specific interventions available to help them. I like to express deep gratitude to the different agencies and organizations that have been helpful in helping people address especially the immediate needs. For example, the Cajun Navy. Tremendous job that they are doing in partnership with us, with the diocese. We host them, and as needs arise, as our teams on the ground raise these needs to our attention, we are able to request the Cajun Navy as well as a host of other volunteers from the state, out of state, to come and meet people's needs.
Yeah, and Father, you've been able to kind of see that firsthand, right?
Well,
Because they get to live with you.
Right. I live at the retreat house right now, and while my house is being repaired, which might be a long time. But anyway, I get to see these people. I've been very impressed by who comes. I mean, there's some examples. Students from Ohio State. There was about 10 or 12 students from Ohio State. Just took off during their break time, semester break, and they spent a few days just helping out. And then they had a whole group from Notre Dame University in Indiana came down, and there was about another 10 or 12 people, and they spent about 2 days just going to different places where there was a need and doing whatever they could. And a lot of times they spend early mornings. I mean, they were gone before, usually I eat about 7:45. Well, they were already gone at 6:30, in the morning, and they spent a whole day, just helping out as much as they could,
Right.
So it's really very 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 just generous to see these people just give them themselves the way they do. It's beautiful.
It's kind of opposite of what we think of with young people who have some time off,
Right.
We think of young people with time off that they're going to sleep
Or go on the
or most of the day.
Go on the beach or
go
something.
right, or go somewhere fun.
Yeah.
Instead, they come and do God's work
Right.
where it's needed.
Right.
Which is it's a huge blessing for us down here. And so it's really wonderful that the diocese is doing their part in all of these different areas, but also about hosting those who want to come and help.
Right.
Helping some of our priests who need a place to stay. And just some of the really challenges that we have. And so we've got about another minute or so left here in this particular segment. And so it's just really nice to be able to see that there's a good plan. And as Vicar General, that's one of the things that you're kind of coordinating for services. And so it's just really nice to see with boots on the ground.
Yes, and of course the role of our priests. When you go to seminary, they don't teach you how to deal with disaster.
Post-hurricane, right?
But it's amazing how our priests, took down their collars and just began to do hands-on work, ministering to people, reaching out to people in very, very heroic ways. Secondly, the people as well. It's been humbling to see men and women in different communities just step up and provide leadership in ways that we never saw before. So I think there is a silver lining even in all this. I'm sure that 5 years down the road, when we look back, we'll see and hear stories of just greatness in our community.
It comes down to some really challenging decisions about what that is, but the assessment process of the individuals that y'all are doing all over the diocese, we're also having to do both with the educational buildings, some of the institutional buildings, and we're having to make some of those tough decisions.
Yeah, so part of that assessment is also to assess the damage inflicted on our physical facilities,
right.
Our churches, our schools, our other ministry locations, our
right.
food banks. Our food bank in Galliano, for example, was totaled. So,
right, total loss.
Yeah, so of course we have, the diocese has insurance. However, the extent of this devastation may be beyond the cover that we have.
Right.
And then FEMA would probably have to kick in to help with some of that. So with all that going on, we are again assessing, making the assessments, adjusters in place right now.
Right.
And so hopefully by the end of the year, we'd have figured out where we are. But the important thing, I think, to note is, first of all, that as much as possible, all the locations have resumed operations. So masses have resumed, either in the if the church was not so much damaged, they are back in their church, or right. If they are damaged, they are using a tent or alternate space. So that's very important.
Sure.
All our schools have resumed, either in their location or in another location. So,
right.
For example, St. Gregory is down in Berg at St. Anne.
Right.
Holy Saviour in Lockport is at St. Hilary in Matthews.
Right.
So, so those creative ways of continuing the services while the assessments go on. Secondly, once we get the results, we'll then be able to figure out our long-term plans,
right.
How to structure those those locations. It's important also to note that each one of those locations is independent. So the diocese will be working with each of those pastors along with their pastoral councils, finance councils, to determine what would be the best way forward in light of the specific circumstances of that location.
Right, and those pastors are going to share that with the people
Yes.
when they have more information. But it's right now we're in that short-term planning for
Yes.
let's get Mass back.
Exactly.
That was, if there was an emergency need, I will tell you that was one of the emergency needs. Let's get back to Mass
Yeah,
and some sense of normalcy so we can better deal with what's going on. And for example, we talked a little bit about Annunciata Church. I know the church itself sustained some tremendous damage, and so they've been using their dining room. They've been using the cafeteria for their masses. And so first couple were outside.
Yes.
They were outside in tents, as a lot of people were. And then they've been able to transition. And so I love the fact that we're finding some creative ways to do this. We want to ask the people of the diocese to be patient about that, because you don't want to rush those kinds of decisions. What were you going to say, Father?
No, I was going to say, sometimes some people are not able to come to these type of things because of elderly. I mean, we get used to somebody in a wheelchair that's rolling up the Mass, something like that. And sometimes going in a tent is not the same. I mean, so I mean, we recognize that, and we just do the best we can. But we do want to get back to some kind of normal place where, people can gather together and worship God in spirit and truth, and everybody feel welcome, and everybody feel wanted, and so but in the meantime, we do what we can with those who are able to come.
You mentioned a really good point, Father, and I think it's a great place to close. There's a gentleman that I know who part of his challenge with his disability is being able to get up in certain chairs. He
Right.
needs to have a certain chair. And ironically enough, at the church that he attends, one of the ushers makes sure that he has his chair
Right.
in the back. If he didn't, he would have to use a wheelchair.
Right.
But it's a way for him to be able to go to Mass and enjoy Mass. And that's just one small example. So, Father, you bring up a really good point about the efforts that are being made to be able to go and celebrate
Right.
Mass. And so now that they're doing church, not in the church itself, they're doing Mass in a different place, they made sure that his chair was available.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I think that y'all have been talking about over these last few segments. You're talking about how we're truly shepherding the people in getting them what they need. Sometimes it's just a chair,
Yeah.
Yes.
but it's important to get it.
But it's-
Closing thoughts,
well,
Father.
Well, it's not just brick and mortar. I mean, no, it's the mission. It's the
Yeah.
mission to the community to come together, worship God, spirit and truth. It's not just a school building, but it's the mission of proclaiming the gospel to young people. And so it's not just brick and mortar. It's much more than that. It's our mission of who we are.
Some final thoughts, Father.
Yes, we are in this together. And I love the way that we are rallying together as a community. And God is with us. One of the things that struck me when I came to the Cajun land is that God is Cajun. God is with us.
God is with us. He's certainly present. Thank you for your presence, and thank you for sharing God with us today. All right, guys, that'll do it for this self-help segment. Don't go anywhere. A lot more local programming when we continue.